In this video, we're going to cover exactly how to work with Wp-Nav menu, and I'll show you some examples of Wp-Nav menu, and then we'll also talk about the Walker Nav menu, so you can customize the list items and the nested list items as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to assume that you already have a basic WordPress site set up, and we'll go ahead and create our own theme together. So basically I already have a wp-nav-menu-theme folder, and it's completely empty, so we can just open this with our text editor of choice, and then we can create our theme. So a regular old theme is going to have a style.css and then an index.php, and those are the two minimum. So let's go ahead and get our theme activated. We'll leave a comment. Oh, this is the index.php. So in the style, we'll leave a comment, and we're going to say theme name Wp-Nav menu theme, and then author John Curry, author URI, your website, and then we'll just, I'm going to say text domain hello world or something, it doesn't matter. So we're going to save this, and then that should, oh wait, and then we have an index.php. Let's go ahead and display something here. Let's just do the header for now. And in H1, it says hello. Okay, so we're gonna say get underscore header, and then save, and then we can make a header.php, and then this header will just be a basic HTML5 shell template. And then in our head, we'll get the head tags from WordPress, which is basically just wp_head. And then in our body, we'll say header, and this is the header area. It's spelled wrong, but okay. So I think that should be everything for a basic theme. So let's go to manage themes, refresh, and then we get this Wp-Nav menu theme. So let's go ahead and activate it. Okay, it's active, and then if you refresh your page, we get this is the header area and hello. And then we can also go into our themes area and we can create some menus, because we're going to need those to work with the Wp-Nav menu. So, oh, and we don't have any menus. So now we need to activate and register menus in the WordPress functions file. So now we can go make a functions.php, and then we will register our nav menus. And the quickest way to get this working is to just go to Google and do a Google search for register_nav_menus. Click on this page, this documentation page, and then the very first comment has an if conditional that has everything we need. So we can just copy that and then go back to our text editor, and in our functions.php we'll paste it in, and I'm going to save it. Oh, and we have to add tags. Okay, so tags are made, and then now let's just change this from primary_menu to primary, and then let's add a secondary footer or menu. So secondary_menu, and then secondary menu, and then text_domain. Okay, so we should save this, and then we should have our menus registered. So let's go back to our site, and then see if we can refresh, and then we should see menus here in our theme area. And so if you're advanced enough to be doing Wp-Nav menu with code, then I'm assuming that you can figure out how to set up the menus or know how to do that already. So I have two menus. I have a first menu and a second menu. So the second menu has just two items here, and then the first menu has these, and they're also nested. I might change those nesting around a little bit throughout the video, but yeah. And then in manage locations, I can set primary menu to like first menu or something like that. So hopefully you can figure out how to do all that stuff. So anyway, we have our header set up, so we're ready to play around with Wp-Nav menu. So let's first go back to our editor, and then inside of our header.php, we're going to create the Wp-Nav menu. And so let's just get rid of this. And then we're going to open up another PHP tag. And then we can call wp_nav_menu. And then it takes an array of options. So array, and then we have a bunch of different options to choose from. And so the first options that we're going to look at two of them at the same time. And so one of them is theme_location. And then the other one is, I think it's menu. So we'll take a look at both of those. So I'm going to comment this one out and save. And let's also go back to our Wp-Nav menu. Okay, and so we've got menu, and then we've got theme location. And so the theme location to be used. And so you have the option to, so our menus can, in this theme, have a primary, a secondary, and a footer. And then the other option is the menu itself. And so these are all of the menus that you can create that may or may not already be in a location. So you've got two separate things. You've got the menu location, and then the menu that's inside of it. And then you've got the menus themselves, and you put those inside of these things. So whether you want to get the menu either way, that's up to you. You can do either one. And so I'm going to use theme location, which is right here, theme location to be used, and it must be registered. So this theme location, I'm just going to say primary. And I think we will leave it at that for now. So let's save. And then we have to make, because this is set up as primary, we need to make sure that something is set in the primary menu location. So we got here primary, and we have the first menu. So that means the first menu is going to be displayed. So if I hit save changes, and then make sure the code is saved as well, it is. So let's go back here, refresh, and then we get our super nested menu. So how did I get the name primary? How do I know it's not, elephant or anything? So the way that we can figure out that is, there's probably multiple ways, but the easy way for me is to just do wp_die or die and var dump and say get _registered _nav _menus. Then add a semicolon and save, and then refresh. And then we should get the keys that we can use to get the menu location. So primary, secondary menu, and footer _menu. So basically, if we wanted to use the whatever menu is in the secondary menu, then we would just swap out primary with the name of the menu location, which is secondary _menu. And so the other option is to use the menus themselves. And so if you want to get that information, then you would just wp-die get terms and then nav _menu. And so I'm not going to deal with that because we got a lot to cover, but hopefully that will give you a nice idea of how to work with the specific menus that you want to display. The next thing we'll talk about is the container. So if you add another option called container, and then let's do nav. You know what? Actually, let's comment this out and save it and look first. So that's commented out. And if you refresh, what you end up, and you look at the inspector elements, so right click, inspect, and then make sure you're on the elements tab. If you click on the body, the header, and then the div, you'll see that our list of menu items is inside of a div. And so this div is the default option, but this is the container of the UL. So if you want to switch that, the container here, we can set the container to nav. So we'll save that and then refresh. And then now if we look at the body, header, now we get nav and UL. So you can change what the container is of the list items. We can also change the class name of that container with the comma and then container underscore class. And so let's just try just some random stuff here and save. And so now instead of that whatever we had before, we should have these yo dude what as the class names. So let's refresh, and that should be for the nav because that's the container. So body, header, nav, and our class is yo dude what call auto. So that's how we can target the container. But what about the UL? And that's pretty self-explanatory as well. So if you go in here and you look at the docs, you'll see these options. But there's menu underscore ID, and then we'll say collapse example, and then menu underscore class equals, and we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, vive, I guess. Okay, save. And then let's refresh now. And so we should see the UL has a class of collapse example and an ID of collapse example and a class of 1, 2, 3, 4 vive. So that is how we target the menu itself. Another common need is to be able to add classes to the list items. So right now we're able to do it to the UL, but how do we add a class to the list item? So there's two ways that we can do this. One with a walker class, which we'll get to, and then the easy way is just with this custom function. So you can add your own option here. So add underscore li underscore class. This is made up. We just created this ourselves. And so let's say that we wanted to have a class of px-3. So if we hit save, nothing's going to happen because, WordPress doesn't know what to do with this because we made it ourselves. So we can add a function in functions.php that will say, hey, if we see this class or if this option exists, then we do something with it. So we're going to call this function add underscore additional underscore class on li. And then this function will take 3 arguments, and we'll get to those, what they are in just a minute or where they come from, but it's going to be classes, item, and args. And then we can define what's inside this function. Basically, if is set args add li class, then we can add whatever is in the args add li class to the classes array. So it would look like this. Okay, and then we also need to return out from this function the classes array. So basically what's happening here is we're saying so this args is going to actually be what is defined here. So these are going to be the args. And so if if add underscore li underscore class exists, then we take the value of that, which in this case is px3, stick it in this array, and then return this array of list item classes. So that's basically how that works. And then we need to actually register this function. So we can do that with add underscore filter, and then nav underscore menu underscore css underscore class, and then the name of the function that we want to add to this filter. So add additional class on li, and then 1 and 3, and I've actually forgotten what those do, but I'm not going to worry about it. You can look it up on your own. And we have, it's basically we're just adding this function to this filter, and so this gets run when this filter gets executed or triggered. So when we can look at this nav underscore menu underscore css class, and we can see that it defines the parameters that we pass in. So we have classes, item, and args. Well, and then the optional, the depth as well. So that's basically what we were doing over here. So you can see classes, item, args, and then we could have put a depth in there as well. But anyway, let's save this, and then let's go back to header. And so we should see px-3 inside of our list items at this point. So let's go back to our website, refresh, and then li, we can see px-3. So we added classes to this element. The next thing is items wrap, and this basically allows you to specify how you'd like the UL to work. So let's just take a look. So items underscore wrap, and then let's give it a div class equals hey, and then you have 3 arguments that you can use, and they come from like sprintf, I believe. So we have the ability to use those 3, but you have to use them in a specific way, and that is a percentage point or percentage sign, and then the number, so either 1, 2, or 3 for the first, second, or third. And so I'm going to use 2 here, and then $s. And then I'm going to close the quotations. And so if you look at this function, this items underscore wrap, or this items wrap section in the Wp-Nav menu source, let's go to Wp-Nav menu and do a control find for items underscore wrap. And then if you scroll down into the source code, you can see at the bottom here is this function. So sprintf, and here are the 3 arguments that we care about: wrap ID, wrap class, and items. And so this is the wrap class, and then this is the list items. So if we go over here, I think just to kind of make it easier to understand, I'm going to copy and paste this, and then I'm going to put this 2s right next to menu underscore class. So right here. And then the %1s is going to be the menu ID. So %1 $s. And then the third one is the actual list items, and so I don't really have a place to put that. That would make sense, so I'll just put it here. %3 $s equals list items. So now down here in this items wrap, we can say the ID equals, and then quotations, %1 $s, and then close the quotes, and then close the entire div, and then we'll add the closing bracket on the div, And then in between, like the content of this div will be %3 $s. And so let's save that. And then let's refresh. And so here we get UL. So before we did the refresh, the thing that was being wrapped was an unordered list. But so if we refresh, and now we look at it, we see nav div list item and list item. And so we have this div, which is defined here. So items wrap div. So that means this div takes place of the UL. And you can tell because we still have our class. So class equals hey, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or vive, come from this %2 $s, which is right here. So you can change what this value is by updating this line here. And then the %3s is the list items themselves. So if we look at it, we get these list items, and it's list items and list items. That's why it looks like there's only two, but you can see here. So %3 is all of our list items. So that's pretty much it for items wrap. Pretty simple. And then the next step is the walker class. Okay, so let's add a comma at the end of that, and then we'll say walker and new JSC underscore Wp-Nav menu walker. And if you look at the documentation, they're not that helpful. It just says, oh, it's an instance of the walker class. Okay, thanks. So you look up walker, and then you find that there's a nav menu extension of that, and then so that's what we're going to end up using. So anyway, we have our walker class defined here. So we need to register this here because this doesn't exist yet. So I'm going to save this file, and then we can create it in our functions.php. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add an action that doesn't exist yet. So we're going to say add underscore action, and then this action is going to be after underscore setup underscore theme, or it's going to get called when after setup theme is triggered. And so we're going to create our own function here, and we're going to call it register underscore nav walker. And so now this function is going to be added to the after setup theme. So it will be called when this is triggered. So we need to create this function now. And we'll do that by basically saying if it doesn't already exist. So I'm sorry, if not function exists, the name nav walker, then create the function register underscore nav walker, which just requires an inc/jsc-nav walker.php. And this file doesn't exist yet, so it's not going to work. But basically all we're doing, oh, and then end if. I think that should be good. So long story short, register this register underscore nav walker function to be run when this after underscore setup underscore theme is triggered. And I am assuming this is something to do with after the theme has been set up, these functions will run. So this should work. And so now we need to actually create this function. So inc/jsc-navwalker.php. So that's in the inc folder. So we need to make an inc folder. So new folder, inc, and then new file inside this folder. And we're going to call it JSC-navwalker.php. Okay, and then inside of this navwalker file, we basically just need to define our class and the functions inside of it. And so this is an extension of the walker nav menu, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So php, and then class JSC underscore WP underscore nav underscore menu walker extends walker nav underscore menu. Okay, so now we can define our functions. Okay, so we got like 4 different functions that we can define here. So I'm going to say function, and they're all pretty similar. So function start underscore LVL, and we take an and sign, $, output, depth with an optional, or with a default of 0, and args with a default of null. Okay, and then I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it down here, and again, and then we'll say the other one is start EL, and then this one has one more with an item, and then at the end we'll say end EL, and output item depth equals 0, args equals null. And because this video is getting long, let's just do 2 at a time. So we're gonna return, well actually we don't even have to return it, but output dot equals, and then we're just gonna say li, I like pi, and then close the li. And actually, just kidding, we're going to say dot and dot, and then we're going to say item title. And then actually start EL needs one more thing, and that is another parameter called ID equals 0. And this is actually, I don't feel like it's very useful, but I may just be misunderstanding it. But anyway, we do need it. So ID equals 0, and then we'll save. And then if we refresh the document, we will get I like pi, and then the item title. I like pi, and then the item title. So every time we get a different title based on what's being displayed in the Wp-Nav menu. And then we're able to update it with the start EL. So this output here, that's what this and sign is. It basically means that this is the actual value of the output and not just like a separate copy. So anytime you edit this, you're actually editing the entire output. So that's basically what we're doing with the output and the item. So this item is a big object, and you get a bunch of different information on it. So be sure to check that out. And then let's also do a var dump on this depth variable here. So depth, and then I'm going to save. And so you remember, well, let's just look at it. Okay, so depth is 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 0. And then you can tell what the depth is all about by just commenting out the walker class and going back to the way things were, so we can see the nesting. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 0. So that's how nested. The depth is how many levels deep of nesting there are for that specific item. So let's uncomment this again, and then go back to our JSC nav walker, and we can comment this out because that's basically what depth is. And let's actually var dump on args as well. So I'm going to say args, save, and then refresh. And we'll get a big object here, and you can see the name, the menu, container underscore class, and then the one that I'm looking for is here, this add underscore li class. So that kind of gives you a hint as to what this is. And so if we, basically, long story short, this args is the arguments from the original function that we called, which is Wp-Nav menu. So it has all of the values that are defined here, and they're defaults. So, you know, even if you don't set something, there still may end up being a default value. So you can access all of this information inside of the nav walker functions. So args here, args here, args here. So start EL, you can access all of that information that you need inside the function. So that's what the args is. And then this ID, I don't know, it feels redundant. Maybe I'm just not understanding it correctly, but the weird thing is that you can get this same ID from inside this item here. So item, and then, so instead of title, you would do ID. And so, actually, I think it's ID like that. But the point is that it's available in there. And so then you could end up using that for an item ID or something along those lines. Okay, so let's comment this out. And then let's take one more look at how things are. So refresh. And then we see all of our list items just nested side by side. So how do we get into the list item? Well, let's take a look at this start LVL function. So again, we have our output. So let's try something like $output dot equals, and then ul class equals, and then I want to create a variable that uses the depth. So we're going to do tmp underscore class equals child hyphen and then dot $depth. So remember how with each element the depth is going to be different if it's nested, or depending on how deep it's nested into the list items or the UL hierarchy. So once we have that, then we can say single quote and then dot tmp class dot and then doubles and then a single and then the closing bracket here. Okay, so we have a output for the start level, and then let's also get rid of this li here, this closing tag of the li, because we don't want to close. You'll see in a second, but basically let's save it, and then let's go back to our code and refresh. And here, let's take a look. So now we get a list item, and then I like pie, and then the name of the title, because that's pretty much what's happening. So list item, I like pie, and then the title. But then what happens after this? So if you look at the shop one, we can see that, well, this one's nested. So we get the depth, and then we also get this. So anytime the depth changes, this start underscore LVL function, it gets called. And then we can append the output. So that means we can have an unordered list as a list item. And then we can kind of add classes as necessary to drop things down and move things to the left, to the right for our child elements, etc. And so what we end up with here is a list item with an unordered list inside of it. And then in this list item, we have another unordered list, and the child has an extra level of depth. So that's pretty interesting, and that's pretty much how we can, make unordered lists inside list items with specific class names that you want to have in there. So you could, say, hey, if this is the 0th depth, then add this class. If it's the first depth, add this class, etc. And so that's pretty much how that works, and how you can get a very precise layout of your elements. And then the next thing here is we can see that the list item is closing. So let's see. Yeah, this list item is being closed, just like this one. So if you want to customize the endings, then you can do that with the end-L as well. The end-Ls are optional because it is smart enough to know to close, but if you want to make a customization, then you totally can. So I'm just going to say /li, and then I'll say ... So I'm going to close this. and then refresh after I save. Okay, and then we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 of these dots. So at the end of each element, you can see that it's adding that content, and right here. So hopefully that makes sense. I'd encourage you just to play around with it a little bit more. But another good thing is there's plenty of examples. So one example of a great resource is this boot score theme, and they give you a lot of details on how they use it. Well, they don't explain it, but it's good code to look at. So if you look in the inc folder, the class-bootstrap5-navwalker, you can see exactly how they're using this function. These functions to create very specific layouts for their list items, and then they can use item ID and item classes and a bunch of other things. So yep, item classes here to get the existing classes. So use this as an example, and again, this is boot score. So if you look up bootscore.me, you can download their theme for free and then play around with it and get a good feel for how to use the Navwalker. So that's it for this video, and I will talk to you later. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to be notified when we release new tutorials. Also be sure to like the video and leave a comment to let us know what you think. Lastly, check out the link or links in the description. We usually create a blog post to go with the tutorial, and we might have a newsletter or course or something to check out as well. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.